The desert wind carried sand and the smell of death across the rocky landscape of northern Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez adjusted her grip on the M82 rifle, feeling the familiar weight that had become like an extension of her own body over the past 18 months. The .50 caliber weapon was a beast, capable of reaching out and touching someone at distances that made other snipers jealous. But right now, as she lay pressed against the cold stone of the mountain ridge, Sarah wasn't thinking about the technical specifications of her rifle. She was thinking about the 7 muzzle flashes she had counted in the valley below. The mission had started simple enough. Alpha Team, a joint operation between Navy SEALs and Army Rangers, was tasked with extracting a high-value intelligence asset from a compound nestled in the Hindu Kush Mountains. The asset, a former Taliban commander who had decided to switch sides after his family was killed in a drone strike meant for someone else, possessed information about a major attack planned for American forces in the region. The intelligence was time-sensitive, and the extraction had to happen tonight. Sarah had been assigned as the designated marksman for the operation, a role that always brought a mix of pride and frustration. Pride because she was damn good at her job, better than most of the men who questioned her presence on the team. Frustration because those same men seemed to think her success was somehow less valid because she happened to be a woman in a profession dominated by testosterone and ego. Lieutenant Commander Jake, the team leader, had briefed them 3 hours before insertion. Was old-school Navy, the kind of officer who had come up through the ranks and earned his position through blood, sweat, and more confirmed kills than anyone wanted to count. He respected competence above all else, which was probably the only reason Sarah found herself on his team in the first place. Intelligence suggests minimal resistance, had said, pointing to the satellite images spread across the briefing table. The compound is isolated, maybe 6 to 8 hostiles maximum. We go in fast, grab our guy, and get out before anyone knows we were there. Sarah had studied the terrain photos, noting the elevation changes and sight lines. The compound sat in a natural bowl, surrounded by rocky hills that provided excellent overwatch positions. She had traced potential shooting lanes with her finger, already calculating distances and wind patterns in her head. Martinez, you'll take position here, pointed to a ridge approximately 800 meters northeast of the target. Good line of sight to the entire compound, minimal exposure. If things go sideways, you're our insurance policy. The insertion had gone smoothly. The team rappelled from Black Hawks under cover of darkness, landing 2 kilometers from the target to avoid alerting anyone to their presence. Sarah had made her way to the designated overwatch position, while the assault team moved into position around the compound. Through her scope, she had watched the compound come to life in the green glow of her night vision. The intelligence had been wrong about the numbers. Instead of 6 to 8 hostiles, she counted at least 15 moving around the buildings. More concerning were the defensive positions she could see had been prepared around the perimeter. Someone had been expecting company. "Overwatch to Alpha Leader," she had whispered into her radio. "Count 15 hostiles, possibly more. Looks like they've prepared defensive positions." This voice crackled back through her earpiece. Copy that, Overwatch. We're committed. Maintain position and provide cover as needed. The assault began at 3:47 hours. Sarah watched through her scope as and his team breached the main building with controlled explosions that lit up the night. The response was immediate and violent. Muzzle flashes erupted from positions around the compound as the defenders opened fire on the SEAL team. But it was the flashes from the hills that made Sarah's blood run cold. 7 distinct positions, all elevated, all with clear sight lines down into the compound, where and his team were fighting for their lives. The defenders hadn't just prepared the compound. They had established a sniper overwatch that could rain death down on the American forces from multiple angles. Multiple snipers in the hills, Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Count 7 positions, all with clear fields of fire on the compound. The response from was immediate and desperate. Can you take them out? Sarah was already shifting her position, using the natural contours of the ridge to mask her movement. 7 targets, spread across 3 different hills, each one potentially capable of putting a bullet through any member of the assault team. The mathematics were brutal. Even if she could acquire and engage each target quickly, the movement between positions would expose team to sustained fire for several minutes. The first sniper was the easiest shot. 600 meters, slight upward angle, minimal wind. Sarah settled into her shooting position, controlled her breathing, and squeezed the trigger. The roared, and through her scope, she saw the hostile sniper's position erupt in a spray of rock and blood. But her muzzle flash had given away her position. Almost immediately, she started taking return fire from the remaining 6 snipers. Bullets whined off the rocks around her position, sending chips of stone flying. Sarah rolled left, using a natural depression in the ridge for cover as she worked the bolt action of her rifle. The second target was more challenging. 700 meters, different angle, and now every remaining hostile sniper knew approximately where she was. Sarah had to move again, crawling 40 meters along the ridge to a new shooting position while bullets continued to snap overhead. In the compound below, the firefight was intensifying. Sarah could hear the distinctive chatter of team's M4 rifles mixed with the heavier bark of AK-47s. Time was running out. If she didn't neutralize the Overwatch positions soon, the assault team would be caught in a crossfire that would tear them apart. The second shot was clean. Sarah had found a gap between 2 rocks that provided just enough space for her rifle barrel while keeping the rest of her body protected. Another round reached out across the darkness, and another hostile sniper disappeared in a pink mist visible through her thermal scope. 5 left, but now they were actively hunting her. Sarah could hear bullets impacting all around her position as the remaining snipers tried to suppress her while maintaining their fire on the compound. She needed to move again, this time to a position that would allow her to engage multiple targets quickly. Sarah low-crawled 50 meters to the eastern edge of the ridge, where an old rockfall provided both cover and concealment. From this position, she could see 3 of the remaining hostile positions clearly. The challenge was engaging them fast enough that they couldn't coordinate their return fire effectively. Her third shot took out a sniper on the western hill, nearly 800 meters away. The bullet flight time was just over a second, and Sarah was already working her bolt and shifting to the next target before the first bullet impacted. Her fourth shot followed 6 seconds later, removing another threat from the equation. 3 snipers left, but they had figured out her new position and were concentrating their fire. Sarah felt something tug at her sleeve as a bullet passed close enough to tear fabric. She rolled right, using the momentum to gain a new shooting angle while staying behind cover. The compound fight was reaching a crescendo. Sarah could hear shouting orders over the radio, directing his team's movement while calling for extract. The helicopter was inbound, but it couldn't land with hostile snipers still active in the hills. Sarah's fifth shot was the most difficult yet. The target was partially concealed behind a large boulder, with only his rifle barrel and part of his head visible. 900 meters in darkness, with an opponent who knew she was coming. Sarah had to wait for him to shift position, exposing more of himself as he tried to get a clear shot at the compound. When the moment came, Sarah was ready. The spoke again, and the hostile sniper tumbled from his position, his rifle clattering down the rocky slope. 2 left, but these last 2 had learned from watching their companions die. They were moving constantly, never staying in one position long enough for Sarah to get a clear shot. Worse, they had begun alternating their fire in a way that kept her pinned down while still engaging the compound. Sarah realized she needed to change tactics. Instead of trying to hunt them from her current position, she needed to move to a location where she could engage both targets quickly, before they could react. Looking at the terrain, she identified a small outcropping about 30 meters to her south that would give her clear sight lines to both remaining positions. The movement would be dangerous. She would be exposed for at least 15 seconds while crossing open ground under fire. But if she stayed where she was, his team would eventually be overwhelmed by the crossfire from above and below. Sarah made her decision. She gathered her rifle and began the dangerous sprint across open ground, bullets whining past her as the hostile snipers tried to track her movement in the darkness. She dove behind the outcropping just as a bullet sparked off the rocks where her head had been a split second before. From her new position, Sarah could see both remaining snipers clearly. They were approximately 700 meters away, positioned on adjacent hills with about 200 meters between them. Sarah would have to take them in rapid succession, counting on surprise and her superior marksmanship to end the threat before they could respond effectively. Her sixth shot was perfect, catching the leftmost sniper centaur mass as he tried to reposition for a better angle on her new hide. She worked the bolt smoothly, the muscle memory of thousands of rounds fired in training taking over as adrenaline threatened to affect her fine motor skills. The last sniper knew he was alone now, knew that death was coming for him across the dark valley. Sarah could see him shifting position frantically, trying to find an angle that would allow him to engage her while maintaining some protection. But she had him figured out now, had read the terrain and calculated his options. When he finally exposed himself for what he thought would be a killing shot, Sarah was ready. Her seventh and final shot of the engagement reached out across 950 meters of darkness and found its target with the kind of precision that separated the great snipers from the merely good ones. Silence fell across the hills like a blanket. In the compound below, the sound of gunfire was diminishing as team finished clearing the remaining defenders. Sarah remained in position, scanning the hills for any sign of additional threats while calling in her report. Overwatch to Alpha Leader. All hostile snipers neutralized. 7 confirmed kills. This voice came back immediately, tinged with relief and something that might have been awe. Outstanding work, Overwatch. Maintain position until extract. As Sarah lay behind her rifle, scanning the darkness for any remaining threats, she reflected on the engagement that had just ended. 7 targets, 7 shots, 7 kills. In the special operations community, precision mattered more than anything else. Tonight, her precision had saved the lives of 8 men who might otherwise have died in a crossfire they couldn't escape. The extract helicopter appeared over the eastern ridge 20 minutes later, its rotors beating a familiar rhythm against the mountain air. Sarah broke down her position, police calling her brass and ensuring she left no trace of her presence on the ridge. In the special operations world, invisibility was as important as accuracy. As she made her way down to the landing zone where team was waiting with their intelligence asset, Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The whispered doubts, the quiet questioning of her abilities, the subtle suggestions that she didn't belong in this world of elite warriors. Tonight had answered all of those questions with the kind of finality that only combat could provide. But even as she felt that satisfaction, Sarah knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove herself all over again. In the world of special operations, reputation was earned one mission at a time, one shot at a time. Tonight had been a good start, but it was only the beginning of a story that would define not just her career, but her very identity as a warrior. The helicopter lifted off into the darkness, carrying Sarah and her teammates. The debriefing room at Forward Operating Base Chapman felt smaller than usual as Sarah sat across from Colonel David Richardson, the commanding officer of Joint Special Operations Command in the region. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the concrete walls, and the air conditioning hummed constantly, fighting against the Afghan heat that seemed to seep through every crack and crevice of the hastily constructed building. 3 days had passed since the mission in the Hindu Kush Mountains, and word of Sarah's performance had traveled fast through the special operations community. 7 confirmed sniper kills in a single engagement was the kind of story that became legend, especially when those kills had saved an entire SEAL team from potential annihilation. Staff Sergeant Martinez, Colonel Richardson began, his weathered face serious as he reviewed the after-action report spread across his desk. What you accomplished 3 nights ago was extraordinary. Lieutenant Commander's team would likely have suffered significant casualties without your intervention. Sarah maintained her military bearing, sitting straight in the uncomfortable plastic chair. Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job. Richardson looked up from the papers, his eyes sharp with the kind of intelligence that had earned him his position overseeing some of the military's most classified operations. Your job was to provide overwatch and engage targets of opportunity. What you did went far beyond that mission parameter. You identified a complex threat, adapted to a rapidly changing tactical situation, and eliminated 7 enemy combatants while under direct fire from multiple positions. The colonel leaned back in his chair, studying Sarah with the careful attention of someone who had learned to read people through decades of military service. I've been in this business for 28 years, Sergeant. I've seen a lot of good shooters, and I've seen a few great ones. What you did out there puts you in a very select category. Sarah felt a mixture of pride and uncertainty. Praise from someone like Richardson was rare and meaningful, but she had learned to be wary of too much attention in a profession where being noticed often meant being scrutinized. Sir, I appreciate that, but I'm not sure why this requires a formal debriefing. My after-action report was comprehensive. Richardson smiled slightly, the first break in his serious demeanor. This isn't just a debriefing, Sergeant. This is a job interview. Before Sarah could respond, the door opened and 2 men entered the room. The first was someone Sarah recognized immediately, Admiral William Hayes, the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Command. The second man was unfamiliar, but his bearing and the careful way he observed everything in the room suggested intelligence community rather than military. Admiral Hayes, Sarah said, standing and coming to attention. At ease, Sergeant, Admiral Hayes replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Sit down, we have a proposition for you. The unnamed civilian took a seat at the conference table, opening a briefcase and removing several folders marked with classification levels that made Sarah's eyes widen slightly. Sergeant Martinez, I'm going to share some information with you that's classified at the highest levels. Before we continue, I need your verbal acknowledgement that you understand the sensitivity of what we're about to discuss. Yes, sir, Sarah replied, though she wasn't entirely sure what she was agreeing to. Admiral Hayes leaned forward, his hands folded on the table. Sergeant, how familiar are you with the concept of asymmetric warfare? Fairly familiar, sir. It's the use of unconventional tactics by a weaker force against a stronger opponent, usually involving guerrilla warfare, terrorism, or other irregular methods. Correct, the civilian said. Now, what if I told you that our enemies have developed a new form of asymmetric warfare specifically designed to counter our technological and numerical advantages? Sarah thought about the question carefully. I'd say that's exactly what I'd expect them to do, sir. Any intelligent opponent would try to find ways to negate our strengths. Admiral Hayes nodded approvingly. The specific threat we're dealing with involves highly trained sniper teams operating in coordinated groups. They've studied our tactics, our equipment, and our operational patterns. They know how we insert teams, how we establish overwatch positions, and how we conduct extractions. The civilian opened one of his folders, revealing satellite photographs and tactical diagrams. In the past 6 months, We've lost 4 special operations teams to coordinated sniper attacks. Each time, the pattern was similar. Multiple sniper teams positioned to create overlapping fields of fire, effectively trapping our forces in kill zones they couldn't escape. Sarah studied the photographs, noting the terrain features and positioning of the hostile forces. The mission 3 nights ago was a test, Colonel Richardson finished. We had intelligence that suggested the enemy would use the extraction operation to test their new tactics. We wanted to see how they would deploy their assets and how effective their coordination would be. You used team as bait, Sarah asked, unable to keep the edge out of her voice. Admiral Hayes's expression didn't change. We used team as a heavily armed reconnaissance force with exceptional Overwatch support. The difference is significant. The civilian spread out additional documents on the table. What we learned from that mission, Sergeant, is that conventional counter-sniper tactics aren't sufficient against these coordinated teams. It takes someone with exceptional skill, adaptability, and judgment to neutralize multiple snipers operating in a coordinated fashion. Sarah was beginning to understand where this conversation was heading. You want me to hunt sniper teams. We want you to lead a specialized counter-sniper unit, Admiral Hayes corrected. You would handpick your team members, develop tactics and procedures, and deploy against high-value sniper threats throughout the theater. Colonel Richardson opened another folder, this one containing organizational charts and budget projections. The unit would be small, highly mobile, and granted significant operational autonomy. You'd report directly to JSOC, with support from both Navy Special Warfare and Army Special Operations Command. The civilian leaned back in his chair. The mission 3 nights ago demonstrated that you have the technical skills and tactical judgment necessary for this role. But leading a team requires different capabilities than operating alone. Sarah looked around the room at the 3 men who were offering her an opportunity that was both thrilling and terrifying. Leading a specialized unit would be a career-defining assignment, but it would also put her under intense scrutiny and pressure. What kind of team are we talking about? 6 to 8 personnel, Admiral Hayes replied. 2 sniper teams, a communications specialist, and a mission support specialist. All volunteers, all with at least 3 combat deployments, all willing to work under a female team leader. The last qualification hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. Sarah had dealt with gender-related issues throughout her military career, but leading a special operations unit would amplify those challenges significantly. I appreciate the offer, Sarah said carefully, but I'm curious about why you're considering me for a leadership position. There are plenty of qualified male snipers with more experience in team leadership. The civilian smiled for the first time since entering the room. Sergeant, 3 nights ago you eliminated 7 enemy snipers while under direct fire from multiple positions. You adapted to a complex tactical situation, made rapid decisions under pressure, and achieved a result that saved 8 American lives. Those are leadership qualities, not just marksmanship skills. Colonel Richardson added, We've reviewed your entire service record, Sergeant. Your performance evaluations consistently note your ability to work effectively with others, your tactical judgment, and your ability to remain calm under pressure. Those qualities, combined with your demonstrated technical proficiency, make you an ideal candidate for this position. Sarah thought about the offer, weighing the opportunities against the risks. What would be my rank and authority within this unit? You'd be promoted to Sergeant First Class immediately, with a pathway to Staff Sergeant within 6 months if performance metrics are met, Admiral Hayes replied. You'd have complete tactical authority over unit operations, subject only to mission parameters established by JSOC. The civilian opened his briefcase again, removing a thick folder marked with multiple classification stamps. This contains preliminary intelligence on our next target, a coordinated sniper team operating in the Helmand province that's been responsible for 17 coalition casualties in the past month. Sarah opened the folder, scanning the tactical assessments and terrain analysis inside. The enemy force consisted of at least 9 snipers operating from prepared positions across a 5-kilometer area. They had effectively shut down coalition movement through a critical supply route, forcing convoys to take longer, more dangerous paths through known IED fields. When would you need an answer? Sarah asked. Now, Admiral Hayes replied without hesitation. The Helmand operation is scheduled to begin in 72 hours. If you accept this assignment, you'll have 2 days to select your team, review the intelligence, and develop a tactical plan. The room fell silent as Sarah considered the offer. Everything about it appealed to her professional instincts. The challenge of developing new tactics, the opportunity to lead rather than just execute, and the chance to make a significant impact on coalition operations in Afghanistan. But she also understood the risks, both professional and personal. If I accept, she said slowly, I want complete authority over team selection. No political appointments, no diversity quotas, no personnel assigned because someone thinks they deserve the opportunity. Agreed, Admiral Hayes said immediately. And I want a direct communication channel to JSOC for mission-critical issues. No interference from intermediate command levels unless there's a strategic reason for it. Colonel Richardson nodded. That's already built into the organizational structure. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. In that case, Admiral, I accept the assignment. The civilian closed his briefcase with a snap that sounded like a period at the end of a sentence. Outstanding. Your team will be designated Task Force Precision. Your call sign will be Overwatch 6. Admiral Hayes stood, extending his hand to Sarah. Congratulations, Sergeant First Class Martinez. Don't make us regret this decision. As Sarah shook the Admiral's hand, she felt the familiar mixture of excitement and apprehension that came with accepting a new challenge. 3 days ago, she had been a designated marksman supporting a SEAL team. Today, she was the leader of a specialized counter-sniper unit with a mission that could significantly impact coalition operations throughout Afghanistan. The next few hours passed in a blur of administrative details, security briefings, and personnel files. Sarah was given access to records for dozens of potential team members, each with their own specialties and deployment histories. She would need to select not just skilled marksmen, but individuals who could work together effectively under the kind of pressure that came with hunting some of the most dangerous enemies the coalition faced. As evening approached, Sarah found herself alone in her temporary office, surrounded by stacks of personnel files and mission folders. Through the small window, she could see the constant activity of the forward operating base, helicopters coming and going, convoys preparing for night movements, and the endless cycle of operations that defined life in a combat zone. Tomorrow, she would begin the process of building task force precision from the ground up. She would select her team members, develop tactics for hunting coordinated sniper teams, and prepare for a mission that would test everything she had learned about warfare, leadership, and herself. But tonight, as she sat in the quiet office with only the hum of air conditioning for company, Sarah allowed herself a moment to reflect on how dramatically her life had changed. 3 days ago, whispered doubts about her abilities had been answered with 7 precision shots across a dark Afghan valley. Tomorrow, she would begin the personnel files spread across Sarah's desk, represented some of the most elite marksmen in the United States military. Each folder contained deployment records, marksmanship scores, psychological evaluations, and confidential assessments from commanding officers. Building task force precision from these candidates would require more than just identifying technical skills. She needed individuals who could function as a cohesive unit under extreme pressure, while hunting enemies who were equally skilled and motivated. Sarah had narrowed her choices to 12 potential candidates from an initial pool of 47. Each represented excellence in their respective fields, but excellence alone wasn't enough. She needed people who could adapt quickly, think independently, and trust her leadership even when conventional wisdom suggested different approaches. The first name on her final list was Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, a Marine Corps scout sniper with 4 combat deployments and a reputation for unconventional tactics. His file noted 17 confirmed kills across 2 deployments in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan. But what caught Sarah's attention was a notation about his ability to identify and exploit enemy patterns. Torres had developed a technique for predicting sniper positions based on terrain analysis and previous enemy behavior that had resulted in 3 successful counter-sniper operations. Her second choice was Sergeant First Class David, an Army Ranger with extensive experience in electronic warfare and communications. His technical background included signal intercept capabilities that could prove invaluable when hunting coordinated sniper teams who relied on radio communication for coordination. His marksmanship scores were exceptional, but his real value lay in his ability to disrupt enemy communications while maintaining secure contact with friendly forces. For her third team member, Sarah selected Staff Sergeant Jennifer, another female sniper whose presence would help establish the precedent that task force precision selected personnel based purely on capability. Had earned her reputation during urban combat operations in where she had eliminated 23 enemy combatants while operating in extremely close quarters. Her psychological profile noted exceptional stress tolerance and an ability to make rapid decisions under pressure. The fourth candidate was Corporal James Mitchell, a Navy SEAL with specialized training in reconnaissance and surveillance. Mitchell's file contained numerous commendations for intelligence-gathering operations that had provided critical information for larger military operations. His sniper skills were solid, but his real value lay in his ability to observe and analyze enemy behavior patterns in ways that revealed tactical vulnerabilities. Sarah's fifth choice was Staff Sergeant Carlos, an Air Force whose medical training could prove essential during extended operations in remote areas. Had cross-trained as a designated marksman and possessed the kind of calm demeanor under pressure that made him equally effective treating wounded personnel or engaging enemy targets at long range. Her final selection was Sergeant First Class Alex, a former Delta Force operator whose file was heavily redacted, but whose confirmed capabilities included advanced demolitions, vehicle operations, and what was described only as specialized insertion techniques. His presence would provide the team with capabilities that extended beyond marksmanship into areas that might prove necessary when hunting enemies who were equally well-trained and equipped. The selection process had taken 18 hours of careful review, cross-referencing capabilities, and analysis of how the personalities and skills would blend into an effective unit. Sarah understood that she was building more than a sniper team. She was creating a precision instrument capable of operating independently against some of the most dangerous enemies the coalition faced. Admiral Hayes had approved her selections without question, and orders had been cut transferring all 6 individuals to Task Force Precision effective immediately. They would arrive at Chapman over the next 24 hours, giving Sarah minimal time to conduct team briefings and develop tactical plans before deploying against the Helmand Province sniper threat. Tors arrived first, stepping off a Black Hawk helicopter with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to dangerous assignments. He was shorter than Sarah had expected, with the weathered look of someone who had spent years operating in harsh environments. His handshake was firm, his eye contact direct, and his first question was exactly what Sarah hoped to hear. "Ma'am, what's our mission profile, and when do we deploy?" Sarah led Tors to the briefing room she had commandeered for Task Force Precision, where terrain maps of Helmand Province covered one wall and enemy position estimates covered another. "We're hunting a coordinated sniper team that's been interdicting supply convoys along Highway 1. Intelligence suggests 9 to 12 enemy marksmen operating from prepared positions across approximately 5 kilometers of terrain." Tors studied the maps carefully, his experienced eyes tracing elevation lines and identifying potential hide sites. Coordinated movement or static positions. Intelligence suggests they move between prepared positions based on convoy schedules. They're organized, disciplined, and they've been effective enough to force us to reroute critical supply operations. Arrived 3 hours later, carrying two large cases that contained sophisticated communications and electronic warfare equipment. His technical background was immediately apparent as he examined the intelligence materials and began asking detailed questions about enemy communication intercepts and signal patterns. "Have we identified their communication protocols?" asked, spreading technical diagrams across the briefing table. "Coordinated sniper teams require constant communication to avoid friendly fire incidents and coordinate target engagement." Sarah handed him a folder containing signal intelligence reports. "NSA has identified at least 3 radio nets operating in the target area. Frequency patterns suggest they're using commercially available encryption, probably upgraded with military-grade modifications." Nodded, already making notes about equipment configurations and jamming strategies. "If we can disrupt their communications at the right moment, we can break their coordination and force them to operate independently." Arrived that evening, her quiet professionalism immediately evident as she reviewed the mission materials without unnecessary questions or comments. Her reputation for precision was matched by an economy of words that Sarah found reassuring. When finally spoke, her question was tactically sound and strategically important. "What's our extraction plan if this operation extends beyond initial?" Sarah appreciated the question because it demonstrated the kind of forward thinking that separated excellent soldiers from merely good ones. "We have helicopter extraction on call, but the terrain allows for multiple egress routes if we need to extract on foot." Mitchell arrived early the next morning, bringing with him the kind of detailed reconnaissance skills that would prove essential for hunting an enemy who knew the terrain intimately. His first action was to request permission to study every available piece of imagery of the target area, from satellite photos to drone footage to ground-level photography taken by previous patrols. "I need to understand how they think about this terrain," Mitchell explained as he organized dozens of photographs on the briefing table. "Sniper hide selection follows patterns, even when the snipers think they're being random. If I can identify their selection criteria, I can predict where they'll position next." Arrived that afternoon with medical supplies and a calm confidence that immediately established him as the team's steady presence. His questions focused on logistics and sustainability rather than immediate tactical concerns, reflecting his experience with extended operations in austere environments. "How long are we planning to stay in the field?" asked. "If we're hunting a coordinated team, they might try to wait us out rather than engage directly." Sarah had been considering the same question. Mission parameters allow for up to 2 weeks of autonomous operations. We'll need to be prepared for extended surveillance and multiple engagement opportunities. Was the last to arrive, and his presence immediately changed the dynamics of the group. His file hadn't adequately conveyed the sense of controlled lethality that surrounded him like an invisible field. When he spoke, it was with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to operating in situations where mistakes were measured in body counts. "What's our rules of engagement?" asked, cutting directly to the heart of operational considerations that could determine mission success or failure. Sarah had spent considerable time reviewing the legal and tactical parameters of their mission. We're authorized to engage any hostile forces that present a clear threat to coalition operations. Positive identification is required, but once confirmed, we have full authority to neutralize threats using any means necessary. With all team members present, Sarah conducted her first formal briefing as Overwatch 6. The 6 individuals seated around the briefing table represented diverse backgrounds and specialties, but they shared common characteristics that made them ideal for the mission ahead. Exceptional technical skills, proven performance under pressure, and the kind of tactical judgment that came only through extensive combat experience. Our mission is to eliminate the coordinated sniper threat operating along Highway 1 in Helmand Province, Sarah began, using a laser pointer to highlight key terrain features on the map. Intelligence suggests 9 to 12 enemy marksmen operating from prepared positions across this area. She clicked to the next slide, which showed convoy attack patterns over the past month. They've successfully interdicted 6 supply convoys, resulting in 17 coalition casualties, and forcing us to reroute critical supplies through areas with significantly higher IED risks. Tors leaned forward, studying the attack patterns. They're not random. Look at the spacing between engagements and the timing intervals. These guys are professional. Was examining signal intelligence reports on his tablet. Communication patterns confirm coordination. They're using multiple radio nets with overlapping coverage areas, sophisticated for insurgent operations. Pointed to elevation lines on the topographical map. Hide site selection shows advanced understanding of ballistics and sight lines. Whoever planned these positions has formal military training. Sarah nodded, pleased with her team's analytical approach. Which brings us to our tactical challenge. We're not hunting typical insurgent snipers. We're hunting professionals who understand our capabilities and limitations. Mitchell had been studying reconnaissance photographs while the others talked. I've identified at least 15 potential hide sites based on terrain analysis and previous engagement patterns. But they're only using about half of them, which suggests they're keeping some positions in reserve. This question was characteristically direct. What's our approach strategy? Sarah clicked to a slide showing her preliminary tactical plan. We deploy in 2-man sniper teams with overlapping fields of observation. Provides communications and electronic warfare support from a central position. Establishes a casualty collection point and provides medical support as needed. She clicked again, showing movement patterns and timing sequences. The key is patience. We establish observation positions and wait for them to reveal themselves. Once we identify their positions, we coordinate simultaneous engagements to prevent them from escaping or regrouping. Looked up from his technical analysis. If I can jam their communications at the moment of contact, it'll prevent them from coordinating their response. But the jamming will also affect our ability to communicate between teams. Sarah had anticipated this challenge. We'll use predetermined signals and timing for coordination once jamming begins. Each team will have specific engagement priorities based on terrain analysis and threat assessment. Tors was studying the timeline Sarah had projected. How long do we wait if they don't reveal themselves? Up to 2 weeks, Sarah replied. But I don't think it'll take that long. These guys have been successful because they've established a pattern. They'll stick with what works until we force them to change. Had been quiet throughout most of the briefing, but now she asked the question that would define their mission approach. Are we hunting them, or are we making them hunt us? The question revealed a tactical understanding that impressed Sarah. There were two basic approaches to counter-sniper operations. Aggressive hunting that sought to locate and eliminate enemy snipers through movement and reconnaissance, or defensive positioning that waited for enemy snipers to reveal themselves through their own aggressive actions. We're going to make them think they're hunting us, Sarah replied, clicking to her final slide. Tomorrow morning, we'll establish what appears to be a standard overwatch position for convoy operations. We'll make ourselves visible enough to attract their attention, then use their response to identify their positions. Smiled slightly, the first expression Sarah had seen from him. Bait and switch, I like it. Was making notes about medical supply requirements for extended operations. How much risk are we accepting with this approach? Sarah had spent considerable time weighing the tactical mathematics of her plan. Significant risk, but manageable if we execute properly. The key is controlling the engagement sequence so they reveal themselves before they can coordinate their response. Was already planning his electronic warfare approach. I'll need to position my jamming equipment to cover all their probable communication areas without interfering with our predetermined coordination signals. Mitchell pointed to several locations on the map. These positions would give me clear observation of their most likely hide sites. If they're as professional as we think, they'll conduct reconnaissance before engaging. I should be able to spot their reconnaissance efforts. As the briefing concluded, Sarah felt the familiar mixture of confidence and apprehension that came before complex operations. She had assembled a team of exceptional individuals with complementary skills and proven performance under pressure. The mission ahead would test not just their individual capabilities, but their ability to function as a cohesive unit under conditions that would challenge everything they had learned about warfare. Tomorrow, Task Force Precision would deploy into Helmand Province to hunt enemies who were equally skilled, equally motivated, and equally determined to complete their mission. The outcome would depend not just on marksmanship and tactics, but on the kind of intangible factors that separated good units from great ones. Trust, communication, and the willingness to risk everything for mission success. Sarah looked around the briefing room at her team members, seeing in their faces the same quiet determination that had carried her through 7 precision shots on a dark Afghan mountainside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to prove that excellence in warfare came not from individual heroics, but from the combined efforts of professionals who understood that their individual success depended on collective achievement. The pre-dawn darkness of Helmand Province was alive with subtle sounds that only experienced operators learned to interpret. Sarah lay motionless behind her M82, feeling the familiar weight of the rifle against her shoulder as she scanned the valley below through her thermal scope. Task Force Precision had been in position for 36 hours, and the waiting was beginning to test even their exceptional patience. The team had inserted via helicopter 2 nights before, landing 8 kilometers from their target area and moving overland through terrain that challenged every aspect of their training. The landscape of Helmand Province was unforgiving, rocky hills punctuated by deep wadis, with sparse vegetation that provided concealment but little cover from direct fire. It was sniper country, terrain that favored patience, precision, and the ability to remain invisible while maintaining clear fields of fire. Sarah's position on Hill 347 gave her commanding views of the highway valley where convoy attacks had become routine occurrences. Through her scope, she could see the staging area where Task Force Precision had established what appeared to be a standard military overwatch position. To any observer, it looked like a routine security setup designed to protect convoys moving through the danger area. But appearances were deceiving. What looked like a standard deployment was actually an elaborate trap designed to force the enemy sniper team to reveal their positions. Tours and were positioned in what appeared to be obvious sniper hides, visible enough to attract enemy attention, but protected enough to survive the initial engagement that would inevitably follow. Had established his communications position in a location that appeared tactically sound, but was actually designed to draw enemy fire toward predetermined kill zones. Mitchell was deployed 2 kilometers to the east, his reconnaissance training put to work identifying enemy movement patterns and communication sites. Had established his medical station in a position that provided both security and rapid access to all team members. Was positioned as a mobile element, ready to exploit whatever opportunities the engagement created. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Make the enemy think they had identified an easy target, then use their aggressive response to locate and eliminate their entire network. But simplicity in planning often translated to complexity in execution, especially when dealing with enemies who possessed equivalent training and experience. Overwatch 6, this is Delta 2, Mitchell's voice whispered through Sarah's earpiece. Movement on Ridge Alpha. Count 3 individuals moving toward probable firing positions. Sarah shifted her scope toward the eastern ridge, using the thermal imaging to penetrate the pre-dawn darkness. She could see the heat signatures Mitchell had identified. 3 figures moving with the careful discipline that marked them as trained soldiers rather than typical insurgents. Their movement patterns and positioning suggested they were conducting final reconnaissance before establishing firing positions. "Copy Delta 2, Sarah replied quietly. "All stations stand by, target acquisition in progress." This electronic warfare equipment had been monitoring enemy communications for the past day, building a pattern analysis of their operational procedures. Overwatch 6, this is Echo 1. Signal intercept indicates active coordination between multiple stations. Count 4 distinct call signs on primary frequency. The intelligence was valuable but not surprising. A coordinated sniper team would maintain constant communication during positioning and engagement phases. Its ability to monitor their communications provided task force precision with a significant advantage, but only if they could exploit it before the enemy recognized the threat. Echo 1, maintain monitoring but prepare for jamming on my command, Sarah ordered. We'll let them complete their positioning before disrupting their communications. This voice came through the radio with characteristic economy of words. Overwatch 6, this is Alpha 2. Visual contact with probable sniper team approach. Count 2 individuals approximately 900 meters. Sarah adjusted her scope to cover sector, confirming the sighting through her own thermal imaging. The two figures were moving with practiced stealth toward positions that would give them clear fields of fire on the apparent coalition Overwatch position. Their approach routes and timing suggested professional military training rather than improvised tactics. Torres reported from his position covering the southern approach. Overwatch 6, this is Alpha 1. No visual contact, but I've got probable muzzle signatures from Hill 289. Recommend immediate engagement authorization. The situation was developing faster than Sarah had anticipated. Instead of a careful positioning phase followed by coordinated engagement, the enemy appeared to be moving directly into attack positions with minimal preparation time. This suggested either exceptional confidence in their abilities or recognition that the coalition position represented a time-sensitive target opportunity. All stations, this is Overwatch 6, Sarah transmitted. Hold positions and maintain observation. Do not engage until all enemy elements are identified and positioned. The restraint required for this approach was enormous. Every member of Task Force Precision could see enemy forces moving into positions from which they could launch devastating attacks on what appeared to be exposed coalition forces. The natural instinct was to engage immediately, preventing the enemy from achieving tactical advantage. But Sarah understood that premature engagement would allow unidentified enemy elements to escape, ensuring that the threat would continue to exist for future operations. Mitchell's update confirmed the wisdom of waiting. Overwatch 6, this is Delta 2. Additional movement identified on Ridge Charlie. Count 4 individuals establishing positions with heavy weapons. Estimate crew-served weapons, possibly mortars. The intelligence changed everything. This wasn't just a sniper engagement. It was a coordinated attack involving multiple weapon systems designed to eliminate the coalition position through overwhelming firepower. The enemy had identified what they believed to be a valuable target and were committing significant resources to its destruction. Echo 1, initiate electronic jamming in 60 seconds, Sarah ordered. All stations prepare for simultaneous engagement on my command. Thus, acknowledgement was immediate. Copy Overwatch 6. Jamming commences in 60 seconds. Be advised, friendly communications will be significantly degraded once jamming begins. Sarah felt the familiar calm that came just before combat engagement. Everything she and her team had trained for was about to be tested against enemies who possessed equivalent skills and motivation. The outcome would depend on precision, timing, and the kind of tactical judgment that separated exceptional units from merely good ones. 30 seconds to jamming, she announced. Confirm targets and prepare for coordinated engagement. TORS reported first. Alpha 1 confirms 3 targets, Hill 289, range 820 meters, clear shots available. Followed immediately. Alpha 2 confirms 2 targets, Ridge, range 740 meters, targets exposed and static. Mitchell provided the intelligence update that confirmed Sarah's tactical assessment. Delta 2 confirms 4 targets with crew-served weapons, Ridge Charlie. Range 1,200 meters. Recommend immediate engagement to prevent indirect fire on friendly positions. The mathematics were challenging but manageable. 9 confirmed enemy targets across 3 distinct positions, with ranges varying from just under 800 meters to over 1,200 meters. Task Force Precision would need to achieve 9 kills in rapid succession while preventing enemy forces from coordinating their response or escaping to continue operations elsewhere. Echo 1, commence jamming, Sarah ordered. This jamming equipment immediately filled the electromagnetic spectrum with interference designed to prevent enemy coordination, while allowing Task Force Precision to operate according to predetermined plans. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Enemy movement patterns shifted from coordinated positioning to confused hesitation as their communication networks failed. All stations engage designated targets, Sarah commanded. The engagement began with TORS eliminating the southernmost sniper team with 2 precisely placed shots that reached across 800 meters of darkness with lethal accuracy. Sarah tracked the muzzle flashes through her scope, confirming target neutralization before shifting to her own engagement priorities. Engaged the team simultaneously, her first shot eliminating the primary sniper, while her second shot eliminated his spotter before either could respond to the attack developing around them. Her marksmanship was flawless, each shot placed with the kind of precision that came from years of training and combat experience. Sarah's targets were the most challenging. The crew-served weapons team on Ridge Charlie that posed the greatest threat to coalition forces in the valley. At over 1,200 meters, the shots required precise calculation of ballistic factors and environmental conditions. Sarah's first shot eliminated the mortar gunner just as he was preparing to drop a round into the tube. Her second shot followed 6 seconds later, eliminating the assistant gunner before he could take over the weapon system. But the engagement was far from over. Mitchell's reconnaissance had been accurate about the number of enemy forces, but their disposition was more complex than initial intelligence had suggested. As Task Force Precision engaged the primary sniper teams, additional enemy forces began revealing themselves through return fire and movement. Overwatch 6, this is Delta 2, Mitchell reported. Secondary targets emerging from concealed positions. Count at least 6 additional hostiles, multiple locations. The enemy had employed a layered defense strategy, with primary sniper teams positioned to attract attention, while secondary elements remained concealed until the engagement began. It was a sophisticated tactic that demonstrated the kind of professional military planning task force precision had been warned to expect. Continue engagement, Sarah ordered. Neutralize all hostile forces. This medical training proved valuable in an unexpected way, as he identified enemy movement patterns that revealed additional firing positions. Overwatch 6, this is Charlie 1. Probable command post identified in Wadi 7. Multiple personnel, communication equipment visible. The command post represented a critical target. If task force precision could eliminate the enemy leadership element, the remaining forces would lose coordination and become vulnerable to systematic elimination. But the position was well protected and would require careful approach to avoid casualties. Alpha 1 shift fire to Wadi 7, Sarah ordered. Neutralize command element. Tors acknowledged immediately, shifting his position to gain clear sight lines on the enemy command post. His movement was covered by who engaged emerging targets with the kind of rapid precision that kept enemy forces suppressed while Tors maneuvered to his new position. The command post engagement required 3 shots to eliminate the communication equipment and personnel. Tors' first shot destroyed the radio equipment, cutting off enemy communication with external support. His second and third shots eliminated the command personnel before they could establish alternative communication methods or coordinate organized withdrawal. His electronic warfare capabilities proved decisive as he identified and jammed backup communication frequencies that enemy forces attempted to use for coordination. Overwatch 6. This is Echo 1. Enemy attempting frequency changes to re-establish communication, jamming all identified frequencies. The loss of communication capability had immediate tactical effects. Enemy forces began operating independently rather than as a coordinated unit, making them vulnerable to the systematic engagement techniques that task force precision had perfected. Mitchell identified individual targets as they attempted to reposition, calling out ranges and positions that allowed the sniper teams to engage with maximum efficiency. This role as mobile element became critical as enemy forces attempted to escape the engagement area. His position allowed him to intercept withdrawal routes while providing supporting fire for the primary sniper teams. Overwatch 6. This is Bravo 1. Multiple targets attempting withdrawal via Wadi 4, engaging with supporting fires. The sound of his rifle joined the engagement as he eliminated enemy forces attempting to escape rather than continue fighting. His marksmanship was exceptional, but more importantly, his tactical positioning the enemy any opportunity to withdraw with personnel or equipment that could be used in future operations. As the engagement continued, Sarah maintained overall command while engaging targets of opportunity with her own rifle. The M82 was devastating at long range, each shot representing not just precision marksmanship, but tactical judgment about target priority and engagement timing. The firefight lasted 17 minutes from initial engagement to final target neutralization. When the shooting stopped, 18 enemy combatants had been eliminated across 6 distinct positions, with no casualties among task force precision personnel. The coordination and precision required for such an outcome represented the kind of professional excellence that defined special operations at their highest level. "All stations, this is Overwatch 6, Sarah announced as she surveyed the engagement area through her scope. "Cease fire, commence battle damage assessment." Mitchell began moving through the engagement area, conducting detailed reconnaissance to confirm enemy casualties and gather intelligence materials. Tours and maintained Overwatch positions, ready to engage any remaining threats that might reveal themselves during the assessment phase. Continued monitoring communications frequencies, ensuring that no enemy forces were calling for reinforcements or reporting the engagement to higher command levels. Prepared to provide medical support if needed while maintaining security at the team's rally point. Established perimeter security, positioning himself to detect and engage any external forces that might respond to the engagement. His experience with complex battlefield dynamics made him ideally suited for anticipating and countering unexpected threats. The battle damage assessment revealed the full scope of what Task Force Precision had accomplished. The enemy force had been completely eliminated, with significant quantities of weapons, ammunition, and communication equipment captured or destroyed. More importantly, documents and electronic media recovered from the command post provided intelligence about enemy operations throughout Helmand Province. As the team prepared for extraction, Sarah reflected on the engagement that had just concluded. Task Force Precision had faced a sophisticated enemy force employing professional tactics and equipment, yet had achieved complete mission success without suffering casualties. The outcome validated not just their individual skills, but their ability to function as a cohesive unit under the most demanding circumstances. The extraction helicopter appeared over the eastern ridge 30 minutes later, its rotors beating a familiar rhythm that signaled the successful completion of another mission. As Task Force Precision gathered their equipment and prepared to return to base, Sarah understood that they had achieved something significant. They had proven that coordinated sniper threats could be successfully countered through superior tactics, training, and execution. The enemy's whispered confidence about too many coalition snipers to handle had been answered with devastating finality. Task Force Precision had demonstrated that quality could indeed triumph over quantity, that professional excellence could overcome numerical disadvantage, and that exceptional individuals working together could achieve results that seemed impossible when considered individually. But even as she felt satisfaction at the mission's success, Sarah knew that this was just one engagement in a longer campaign. There would be other enemies, other challenges, and other opportunities to prove that Task Force Precision represented a new standard of excellence in special operations warfare. 6 months after the Helmand Province engagement, Sarah stood before a packed auditorium at the Special Operations Command Headquarters in Tampa, Florida. The audience consisted of senior military officials, intelligence community representatives, and special operations personnel from across the armed services. She was delivering the keynote presentation at the annual Counter Sniper Symposium, sharing lessons learned from Task Force Precision's deployment to Afghanistan. The statistics displayed on the screen behind her told a remarkable story. In 6 months of operations, Task Force Precision had conducted 23 missions against coordinated sniper threats throughout Afghanistan. They had eliminated 137 enemy marksmen while suffering 0 fatalities and only 3 minor injuries among team members. More significantly, their success had effectively eliminated coordinated sniper threats along critical supply routes, allowing coalition forces to resume normal logistical operations in areas that had been effectively controlled by enemy forces. The key to our success, Sarah explained to the audience, wasn't superior marksmanship, though technical proficiency was essential. Our advantage lay in understanding that we were fighting an enemy who thought like us, trained like us, and was motivated by objectives that were tactically sound even if we disagreed with them strategically. Admiral Hayes sat in the front row, occasionally nodding as Sarah described tactical innovations that Task Force Precision had developed during their deployment. The Admiral's decision to approve the formation of a specialized counter-sniper unit had proven strategically significant, with implications that extended far beyond Afghanistan. Traditional counter-sniper tactics assume individual or small-team threats operating with limited coordination and communication, Sarah continued. What we faced was sophisticated enemy forces employing coordinated tactics with professional military training. Our response had to evolve accordingly. General Williams, the commanding officer of Special Operations Command, leaned forward as Sarah described the tactical modifications that had made Task Force Precision effective against coordinated threats. The lessons being presented had applications beyond current operations, offering insights into how Special Operations Forces might need to adapt to face future threats. The enemy's strength lay in their coordination and communication, Sarah explained, clicking to a slide that showed enemy communication networks. Our electronic warfare specialist, Sergeant First Class, developed jamming techniques that not only disrupted their coordination, but forced them to operate as individuals rather than as a team. Was in the audience, having been promoted to Master Sergeant and assigned to develop electronic warfare curricula for special operations training programs. His innovations in communication disruption had been incorporated into standard operating procedures across multiple commands. But jamming enemy communications was only effective if we could maintain our own coordination during engagements, Sarah continued. We developed hand and arm signals, predetermined timing sequences, and tactical protocols that allowed us to operate effectively even when electronic communication was impossible. Tors, now a gunnery sergeant and instructor at the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, had helped develop the visual communication techniques that Task Force Precision used during electronic warfare operations. His experience hunting coordinated sniper teams had become required instruction for all Marine Corps sniper students. Sarah clicked to the next slide, which showed engagement statistics broken down by mission type and enemy force composition. What we learned was that enemy coordination could be turned into a vulnerability if we could force them to reveal their entire network during a single engagement. The tactical innovation that Sarah was describing had been formally adopted as doctrine by Joint Special Operations Command. Instead of engaging enemy snipers individually as targets of opportunity, coalition forces now used sophisticated deception operations to force entire enemy networks to reveal themselves for systematic elimination. The deception operations required exceptional discipline from all team members, Sarah explained. We had to allow enemy forces to move into attack positions, complete their preparations, and begin their engagement sequence before we could respond. The psychological pressure of watching enemies prepare to attack positions occupied by your teammates tested every aspect of our training. Promoted to Sergeant First Class, and now serving as a senior instructor at the Army Sniper School, had become the subject of multiple case studies about stress management during high-risk operations. Her ability to maintain precision marksmanship while under direct observation by enemy forces had been identified as a model for training programs across the military. Our reconnaissance specialist developed pattern analysis techniques that allowed us to predict enemy behavior with remarkable accuracy. Sarah continued, acknowledging Mitchell's contributions to intelligence-gathering procedures that had been adopted throughout the special operations community. Mitchell, now a chief petty officer serving with Naval Special Warfare Development Group, had established new standards for reconnaissance operations in sniper-threatened environments. His techniques for identifying enemy sniper networks through pattern analysis had become required training for all special operations reconnaissance specialists. Medical support proved critical not just for treating casualties, but for maintaining operational tempo during extended missions, Sarah explained. Promoted to technical sergeant and serving as a senior medical instructor, had developed medical protocols specifically designed for special operations teams operating in extended isolation, while under threat from precision enemy fire. Our mobile element provided capabilities that extended beyond traditional sniper operations into areas that proved essential for mission success. Sarah continued, describing S role without providing details that remained classified. Now serving with a different special operations unit whose activities were not subject to public discussion, had helped establish new doctrinal approaches to multi-domain operations. As Sarah concluded her presentation, she reflected on how dramatically her life and career had changed since that night in the Hindu Kush Mountains, when she had eliminated 7 enemy snipers. The technical achievement that had brought her to Admiral Hayes's attention had led to opportunities and responsibilities that she could never have imagined. The lessons we learned in Afghanistan have applications that extend beyond counter-sniper operations, Sarah told the audience. We demonstrated that small, highly trained teams using innovative tactics can achieve strategic results against sophisticated enemy forces. But more importantly, we proved that excellence in special operations comes from the combined efforts of exceptional individuals working together toward common objectives. Task Force Precision had been disbanded after their Afghan deployment, but its members had been distributed throughout the special operations community to share their experience and train new generations of operators. The tactical innovations they had developed continued to influence operations worldwide, while the training programs they had established ensured that future special operations personnel would be prepared to face similar challenges. After the presentation, Sarah was approached by Colonel Richardson, who had been promoted to Brigadier General and was now responsible for Special Operations Doctrine development. "Outstanding presentation, Sarah," he said, using her first name rather than her rank in the informal setting following the symposium. "Thank you, sir," Sarah replied. "I hope the lessons prove useful for future operations." Richardson smiled, his expression suggesting he had additional information to share. "Actually, I have a proposition for you. We're establishing a new training center for advanced special operations techniques. We need someone to command the counter-sniper division." The offer represented another career-defining opportunity, but Sarah had learned to consider such offers carefully. "What would that involve, sir?" "You'd be responsible for developing training programs, selecting instructor personnel, and ensuring that special operations forces are prepared to face the kinds of sophisticated threats that Task Force Precision encountered in Afghanistan," Richardson explained. "It's a challenging assignment, but it's also an opportunity to influence special operations training for the next generation." Sarah thought about the offer, weighing the opportunity to shape future training against her desire to remain operationally active. "When would you need an answer, sir?" "Take your time," Richardson replied. "This is a decision that will affect not just your career, but the effectiveness of special operations forces for years to come." As Richardson walked away, Sarah found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. 3 years ago, she had been a designated marksman supporting SEAL operations, fighting to prove herself in a profession dominated by men who questioned her presence. Today, she was being offered command of a training division that would influence special operations doctrine for decades. The transformation had been earned through competence demonstrated under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. 7 precision shots on a dark Afghan mountainside had opened opportunities that led to tactical innovations, strategic successes, and recognition as one of the premier counter-sniper specialists in the United States military. Admiral Hayes approached as Sarah stood contemplating Richardson's offer. "Excellent presentation, Sergeant First Class," the Admiral said, though Sarah had recently been promoted to Master Sergeant. "Your analysis of coordinated threat patterns was particularly insightful." "Thank you, sir," Sarah replied. "The credit belongs to the entire team. Individual success would have been impossible without exceptional personnel working together." Admiral Hayes nodded approvingly. That understanding of team dynamics is exactly why Richardson offered you the training command position. Leadership in special operations requires more than technical proficiency. It requires the ability to develop other people's capabilities. The Admiral paused, his expression becoming more serious. I should mention that there are other opportunities available if you're interested in remaining operationally active. We're developing new mission profiles that would benefit from your experience and expertise. Sarah felt the familiar mixture of excitement and apprehension that came with new challenges. What kind of mission profiles, sir? I can't provide details here, Admiral Hayes replied, but I can tell you that they involve threats that are evolving faster than our current capabilities can address. We need people who can adapt quickly and develop solutions under pressure. The conversation was interrupted by the approach of several junior officers who wanted to discuss specific tactical techniques that Task Force Precision had employed during their deployment. Sarah spent the next hour answering detailed questions about communication protocols, engagement sequences, and coordination procedures that had proven effective against sophisticated enemies. As the symposium concluded and attendees began departing, Sarah found herself alone with her thoughts about the choices ahead. Command of a training division would allow her to influence the development of future special operations personnel, ensuring that they were prepared to face evolving threats with innovative tactics and superior training. Alternatively, remaining operationally active would provide opportunities to continue developing new techniques and testing them against real enemies in actual combat situations. Both paths offer the chance to make significant contributions to national security and special operations effectiveness. Standing in the empty auditorium where she had just shared the story of Task Force Precision's achievements, Sarah understood that her decision would be influenced by the same factors that had guided her throughout her military career. The desire to serve effectively, the commitment to excellence, and the understanding that individual achievement meant nothing without collective success. The whispered doubts that had once questioned her presence in special operations had been silenced by demonstrated competence under fire. 7 enemy snipers eliminated in a single engagement had led to opportunities that culminated in command of a specialized unit whose achievements influenced military doctrine and training programs worldwide. But more importantly, those 7 shots had proven that excellence in warfare came not from individual heroics, but from the combined efforts of exceptional people working together toward common objectives. Whether she chose to command a training division or pursue new operational challenges, Sarah understood that her success would continue to depend on her ability to inspire and develop other people's capabilities. The transformation from follower to leader had been completed through combat experience, tactical innovation, and the kind of professional excellence that earned respect rather than demanding it. As Sarah prepared to leave the auditorium and make decisions that would define the next phase of her career, she carried with her the confidence that came from knowing she had proven herself capable of meeting any challenge the profession of arms might present. The whispered question of whether she belonged in the special operations community had been answered definitively through demonstrated performance under the most demanding circumstances imaginable. Now, as she contemplated new challenges and opportunities, Sarah understood that her journey from designated marksman to recognized expert in special operations warfare was not ending, but evolving into something even more significant. The future would bring new enemies, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove that excellence in military service knew no boundaries, except those imposed by individual commitment to continuous improvement and collective achievement. 7 enemy snipers had been eliminated on a dark Afghan mountainside. But the real victory lay in what those 7 shots had made possible for Sarah, her teammates, and the special operations community that had given them the opportunity to serve at the highest levels of military excellence. The story of Task Force Precision had become part of special operations legend. But for Sarah, it represented just the beginning of a career dedicated to ensuring that future generations of warriors would be prepared to face whatever challenges the profession of arms might demand. Excellence, once demonstrated, created opportunities for even greater excellence, and the cycle continued with each new mission, each new challenge, and each new opportunity to prove that competence and commitment could overcome any obstacle. The hunt would continue. The hunt was about to begin. Those shots were just the beginning of something much larger and more significant. The transformation from follower to leader had begun, and there would be no turning back. Back to base, back to safety, back to a world where people would soon be talking about the night a single sniper eliminated 7 hostile positions and saved an entire SEAL team from destruction. But for Sarah, the mission was just another day at the office, another opportunity to demonstrate that excellence knows no gender, only results.